We're live.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another Facebook Live. I'm Darrell Steinberg. I'm the mayor of Sacramento. I hope that you all had a safe week getting through another week of this unprecedented time we are facing in our community and in our country. Tonight, we want to focus our attention on what's happening in Sacramento's neighborhoods, to its business community and to its people. The country and the economy, as we all know, are facing unprecedented economic challenges, especially prominent, however, for those neighborhoods and those communities outside just the central city, those communities that represent the great diversity of the city of Sacramento. Tonight, we want to talk about equity. We want to talk about whether or not all of the myriad of aid programs are actually getting to the neighborhoods and the communities who are most in need. There is no question that there is a lot of help out there. The question is the help being focused in the most effective way possible? For example, we know that the federal government, through the so-called PPP program, put forward $349 billion worth of assistance for, quote, small businesses to be able to get through the coronavirus pandemic. The money was gone in 14 days. And we know that while it was intended for mom and pops, for small businesses, that some 75 publicly traded companies actually got a significant amount of the money. We've all read about Shake Shack returning $10 million. There are other companies, big companies that received large amounts. And at the same time, here in Sacramento and throughout the country, there are a lot of small businesses in our neighborhoods that did not get the aid. Here in the city, in the first week of the pandemic, we put forward $1 million to help our small businesses, restaurants, retail, childcare centers. We got the money out fast, and it was largely first come, first serve. A lot of the money went to a lot of the central city businesses. There were some neighborhood businesses served, but we've heard loud and clear, not enough. $1 million only goes so far. And then there's the Donate for Sacramento Fund, which is maybe a little bit more of a hopeful story when it comes to neighborhood-based investment. We, together with the Sierra Health Foundation, all of our constituent partners, have raised now over $1.2 million, about 1,000 donors in Sacramento. That money has gone to a wide array of causes, including to the Sacramento Asian Chamber of Commerce, to distribute 119 small businesses in our neighborhoods, mostly diverse businesses, have received grants of $1,000. That's 119 minority-owned businesses. The fund has also enabled the United Way to give grants to hundreds of families who need a little bit of help, a lot of help actually, to pay their bills. Sacramento has led the way, I believe, when it comes to matching our resources with the issue that has emerged more prominent than about any other issue, at least on my radar, and that is food insecurity. Today, the governor announced a state plan really based on a Sacramento model to have our restaurateurs make food, and to have the federal government, the state government, and a little bit of the city government pay the restaurateurs to do so, and then to gather that food, to package the food, and to deliver it to as many shut-in seniors as possible. Like I say, in Sacramento, we've already been doing that, but this will now allow significant state and federal reimbursement to expand that. Tomorrow at 1 o'clock on Saturday, I'm going to have a major community meeting or town hall in which we're going to invite as many restaurateurs, and I hope the small restaurateurs will join the call to see how you can join this effort. Look on my engagesac.org website. All my social media will give you the information about how to join the call and the town hall at 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. In Sacramento, we have prided ourselves on our diversity and our genuine commitment to inclusion. And as we have grown a more modern, cosmopolitan economy over these last 5 to 10 years, we have also committed to inclusion, to invest in our neighborhoods, to invest in our forgotten commercial corridors, to invest in affordable housing. And that was the reason, as we talked about a week or so ago, why I asked the voters to pass Measure U. Measure U added a half-cent sales tax, an additional $50 million a year. A lot of that now is temporarily swept away because of the dramatic reduction in sales tax that we anticipate in our city. And yet, one hand taketh, another giveth, because we also this week received a check for $89 million as part of the federal stimulus, direct aid. And one of the opportunities we have is to replicate, if you will, that same approach to inclusive economic development by using that $89 million to not only help mitigate the damage in our neighborhoods from the coronavirus, but to continue the commitment and the momentum we had started to invest to create new opportunities in our neighborhoods. Tonight, I want to talk to two of Sacramento's leading voices on inclusion and diversity. And they're not just talkers, they are doers, because they are on the ground every day working with our diverse communities in Sacramento, helping people and businesses through this period of time. But none of this crisis management, if you will, is new to them, because they're doing it with heart and with soul every day. Please welcome Rachel Rios, who's the Executive Director of La Familia. Welcome to you, Rachel. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you so much, Mayor, for including me.
Of course, and Nathan Ulsh, who is the Director of the Franklin Boulevard Business Improvement District, is with us as well. Of course, all remote, the way it is. I hope that you guys are both doing well. I want to thank you for your commitment to Sacramento and to the cause, if you will, of economic diversity and of inclusion. I want you to just take a moment. We'll start with Nathan. Tell us what the Franklin Boulevard PBID does. And I'm going to ask Rachel to do the same thing when it comes to La Familia. Give our several thousand viewers tonight a little sense of what you're about.
Absolutely. And thanks for having us here tonight, Mayor. Greatly appreciate the opportunity to speak with you and hopefully enlighten others on what's happening. And so Franklin Boulevard, the business district here, we serve hundreds, over 500 businesses, business owners, and 120 property owners from 12th Avenue down to 47th Avenue, and even stretching a little beyond that, right? And when we talk about inclusive economic development, we think about health, equity, transportation, housing, and we are looking at all of that inclusively, if you will. And through that lens, what we are hoping to tackle through this pandemic really is to find a way to help people secure opportunity. And that's ultimately what it boils down to. And so for us, unfortunately, uncertainty, despair, those are the words that we're encountering today. And we are here to help our entrepreneurs, our local business owners, local property owners. Many of our folks in our district are very, very much local Sacramentans who have been here for decades and generations. We're 48% Latino. And for us, it's very important that we are a voice. We serve and represent our community in a way that they deserve.
Thank you. Rachel, tell us about La Familia. We're very familiar with you, but some of the people watching may not be.
All right. Thank you. Thank you again for having us. So La Familia is an organization that has been in Sacramento for over 47 years. As our name implies, we do counseling, mental health counseling services for children 0 to 21, behavioral health services, as well as other case management support services for young people and families. We have a robust Birth and Beyond program where we are helping families to prevent child abuse, addressing domestic violence, and working with strengthening families. In addition to that, we are one of the America's Job Centers. So we work with individuals to put them into jobs, to look at job training opportunities, subsidized employment or job fairs. And then, of course, we do a lot of youth programs, and we do Medi-Cal enrollment and health access. During this COVID times, we are obviously dealing, as everyone is, with the crisis that our community is dealing with. Several, I think, highlights, to share are the mental health issues, the crisis that's going on with our community in terms of the stressors. And also to emphasize that prior to the COVID, stay in shelter in place orders, people were also dealing with public charge, information about public charge and anti-immigrant.
Define public charge for us, please.
Absolutely. So the federal government revised their guidelines for what public charge is. And in essence, public charge is a guideline that the federal government develops to establish who can gain citizenship. The point being that if someone is coming from another country, the government does not want them to become on the government rolls or a burden to this government. And so they need to demonstrate that they can be self-sufficient. And so normally things like SNAP Ed, food, free lunch, medical services are not included as public charge. It is only cash assistance, of which most undocumented people are not eligible for cash assistance anyway. However, there was a lot of conversation about public charge rules, and there was a lot of fear in the community about what that meant and how that could jeopardize legal residents that were here and their applications for citizenship. The public charge rules changed in February, and we were right in the process with California Rural Legal Assistance Foundation of educating the community in terms of access, what they still could access. And then, of course, COVID came. So you have a lot of fear from community thinking that they can't ask for help because it could jeopardize their status. That, and of course, the impact that many in our community are part of the service industry that we know has been very severely impacted through this pandemic, also has a higher incident of impact on our communities as well.
So the public charge issue, another Trump, frankly, another Trump act to make it tougher for immigrants in the United States of America, preceded this COVID crisis.
Yes, the new rulings and the new rules took effect February 24th. So it's just weeks before most of the county and states shelter-in-place orders. So that really impacted the ability for nonprofits like us and other organizations to really do the outreach and the education. We're still doing so. We're doing virtual Know Your Rights workshops. We're still trying to communicate with the community about what services are there. And La Familia is still open. We have limited public hours, but we are still open because we feel that we need to be there for the community. We're providing lunches, an average of 250 lunches every day to children. Many of our staff are also delivering them to families who don't have transportation. And then our career center is open so that we can help people apply for benefits if they're eligible, or at least look for jobs that might be open at this time, as well as we're continuing to do many of our other services through telehealth and virtual meetings.
Good. Thank you for that overview. So Nathan, I want you to take us back to a long time ago, 5 weeks ago, prior to COVID-19 hitting. What were the challenges and opportunities that Franklin Boulevard was facing when it comes to the businesses being able to succeed and being able to grow?
Right. And so, we are a resilient community, right? In terms of we've weathered the storm from the issues of the financial crashes, if you will, and we are on a trajectory to succeed and continue forward. And when this hit, now we're at a point where these are family-owned businesses, and we're trying to figure out triage. Do you let go of your sister, your brother? We're laying off people left and right, and it's very scary at this point in time. Sales are down 50 to 90%, in the district overall. We have restaurants that are staples that have been here for 50 plus years. We have community members that long for sustainability of what we're doing. We have many projects in the work, as you know, such as the Mercado that we're hoping to get going here.
Describe the Mercado, will you?
Of course. This is a business incubator for low to moderate income entrepreneurs, predominantly focused on Latinos, that we would like to begin at some point, but it's to activate a core area of Franklin Boulevard and to activate and create a space of safety, of events, and so forth. And so, like I said, it's a business incubator. We'll talk more about it some other day. But right now, it's specifically, we're trying to figure out what to do with Corona and how to move forward with that.
So let's get right to the heart of that. And you both, of course, have alluded to it in your opening comments here tonight. But describe in a little bit of detail, maybe an example or two, of what's been happening in the community over the last 5 weeks. You say business is down over 50 to 90%, I think you said, Nathan. What are most of the businesses doing to try to stay afloat? And Rachel, what's the most common thing you're seeing from members of the community? You serve a lot of undocumented immigrants as well. Give us a sense of the most common thing you see on a daily basis in each of your respective sectors. Go ahead, Rachel.
Oh, okay, absolutely. So, certainly we see a lot of folks that are coming in because they have lost their jobs and they are not necessarily eligible for benefits. So, trying to find out what resources might be available to them that they might be able to access. Also, we're seeing a lot of people in crisis. So, a lot of mental health. We've seen, for example, the news carried the story about 2 young people who had committed suicide. Prior to their events, there was another young person in our community that had also committed suicide. The family was not wanting to share that information, obviously. And so having access to services for those families that are undergoing those stressors is really critical to be able to do. Let me also say that we serve a lot of young people, and we had a lot of young people in training programs where they had subsidized training, and all of those things stopped. And those young people, are our future. So we want to be able to give them those training opportunities so that they can be ready for those jobs and the next generation of jobs, in our economy. And so that's something that also was negatively impacted. One of the other things that is a big concern is, as you know, that both local and state level system involved youth and adults are being released, obviously, to reduce some of the crowding and to address some of this issue. Having people in our community without having the resources available or jobs to place them in is not a good situation, right? We're not supporting them and setting them up for success. And so these are the kind of things that we hear, but more and more it's really families in stress, a real strong concern that domestic violence and child abuse issues may start to see an increase. And so really working with our families, as we are one of the 9 family resource centers here in Sacramento, part of the Birth and Beyond Collaborative, and really working together to make sure that we cover all of Sacramento and address those needs for the families, and specifically for our families that are undocumented and don't feel that they have a voice right now.
So as a quick follow-up, the governor announced, again, a week or so ago, that the state would allot $125 million of state resources to help undocumented immigrants, undocumented families, because those families and those individuals are largely ineligible for any federal aid. Have you gotten access either to those resources or yet determined how it is you're going to be able to access some of those resources for the members of your community?
We have not. We have not gotten access to those dollars. I'm not sure the process for where that will go, but we are working with our partners such as Sacramento's Fuel Network, which has been an amazing organization, collaborative, especially for immigrant communities, not just Latino, but all immigrant communities, and being able to address what those needs are. And so we are hoping that the Fuel Network will be the repository for those funds, because they know who all of the partners are already. As you know, the Fuel Network is something that was started by you and by Sacramento and has been very successful, collaborative. So we're hoping that that's where that will go. There's been limited funds through the Donate for Sacramento. I believe La Familia has gotten $5,000 for our Birth and Beyond program. We have over 200 families, so that's probably about an average of $25 per family. But we have been working with some of our funders like Dignity and AT&T, and asking them if we can reallocate some of the resources that they gave us to possibly address this until the state funding can come down.
Well, certainly as a follow-up to tonight, we are going to ratchet up our effort to figure out the timing of those state funds and how we can make sure that our Sacramento communities get their share as quickly as possible. It's a good thing to highlight. So Nathan, let's talk to you a little bit about all the small business assistance that is out there. We've got the Paycheck Protection Plan. How many businesses on Franklin Boulevard were able to get those PPP loans, some of that $349 billion as part of the third federal stimulus?
It's funny because a lot of them, unfortunately, may or may not qualify based on the stipulations of itself. So it's been hit or miss. Contractors, sole proprietors, some folks, immigrants, for example, might not have the proper paperwork to process access to those loans. So it's been there's been some constraints, we'll say, amongst applying for those funds. So we've also been pushing for the disaster relief funds, and obviously the city's $1 million fund loan program that you had released. We're hoping for more of that, by the way. It's a great program. We're stretched thin. Our district, we have a team working nonstop right now. I'm at the office. I'm on calls from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. all day, every day, trying to figure out what resources are available. When is the next round of PPP coming through? We have many people in the queue that did not get funding. We've had a couple people successfully apply, but as you know, with the banks and the regulations around that, it's been very, very hard, to the point to where wait times have been as high as 7 hours to get a hold of somebody at the banks. The process is really not conducive to the business environment, if you will. So we've been really looking to source locally, and very thankful for the Sacramento community, because the loyal customer base that we do have is what's keeping us alive. So, shout out to the local neighborhoods. We got North City Farms, La Familia, the neighborhood here, Southland Park, Mr. Joe Flores out there, Curtis Park, Hollywood Park, Oak Park. We got a lot of people that have a lot of love for our community, and we've seen the support pour in, but we gotta do more. We have to do more. And part of that comes to the $1 million loan fund.
Yeah, so the city's $1 million loan fund, is really a drop in the bucket, and yet it created, understandably, a significant amount of expectation among small businesses throughout the entire city who wanted, obviously, some of that help. It only went so far. And it was kind of first come, first serve. And as I said in my earlier comments, we've heard a lot of concern that the money was not distributed as evenly and equitably among Sacramento neighborhoods as it could have. And I take that in and also take responsibility for that. Really what I always want to do is learn from one experience so that we can make it better the next time. And so I'm going to get back to that in a moment. But I want to go back to the federal Paycheck Protection Program and the disaster relief funds, because while the city has some ability to provide assistance, obviously the magnitude of the resources exist at the federal government, and there is a new tranche, right? $310 billion of new small business assistance as part of the package that was just passed this week. So what is it that you need that you maybe don't have to make it easier for the businesses that are eligible in the Franklin Boulevard corridor to be able to succeed? What did we learn from the first time that we can do differently as a local community to provide technical assistance or whatever it is that is needed?
Yeah, that's a great question. Internally, we have been helping push out information, for example. Anything that comes around, we are pushing it out. California Capital is a great partner, for example. Microloans is a big help. We're pushing people out that way if they can't get access to the PPP. But through the partnerships we are working with SBA, SBDC, some of the local banks as well. We got regional banks, local banks, community banks. So we are working as hard as we can to at least connect our folks to those opportunities, there in itself. But quite frankly, we are just trying to figure out how the process works, to be honest with you, because there's a lot of vagueness to that. Upon the release of the funds, even the second tranche of funds, as you're alluding to. So what we're trying to do is just get everybody as prepared as possible with the right paperwork. People didn't have access to their accountants, for many days. As you know, tax season is in effect right now. It's been pushed out a little bit, but accountants, CPAs are all busy. And we got businesses requesting documents that they direly need to start applying and making an effort towards that. So the big thing for us is going to be the community support through, anywhere from Donate for Sacramento, working in partnership with the IEDC group. We did get $17,000 from that group. We're able to deploy those funds to 17 minority-owned businesses. They are very thankful for that opportunity, but it's very hard to pay for rent and utilities and payroll and inventory and serve the community to the best of their ability when there's not a lot of funds available, and readily so.
Rachel, let's go back to you for a moment. You've mentioned mental health a couple of times. How do you provide those services now when people cannot come into La Familia, when people cannot be seen face to face? How are you trying to provide community members who are worried, who are stressed, to the undocumented families that are worried about this public charge issue that you spoke about earlier? How do you provide them with the emotional support that they need?
Well, it's a good question. So we have learned what telehealth is, and we have great leadership in Sacramento County with Dr. Quist, who immediately started weekly phone calls with all of his mental health providers to talk about how we can ensure that our communities were being served. And so we have done telehealth. Our psychiatrist comes in, and then we work with families. Right now, we're working to try, and any family who doesn't have access to some type of device where we can actually see them, because we think that having that face-to-face contact makes a difference, then to see how we can give them a device or how we can get them a used device. But we are doing behavioral health through telehealth. We also, because we have been in the community for many years, we have a community health worker program, a mental health community health worker program. And our staff are very skilled and trained in communicating with the community, and they're making phone calls, including calls to over 60 seniors that we had. We had a Manitos program at La Familia that used to meet weekly. And so we are contacting our seniors, just checking in on them and making sure they're okay. And if they need anything, one of their biggest requests is obviously food. And I want to say that the virus doesn't discriminate. It's not that the Latino community is going to get this virus more than anyone else. It's just that when you have vulnerable communities that don't have access to services and to healthcare, then they're going to be impacted greater. And to that, I really want to say that looking at different models for healthcare, looking at community health workers is something that I think we can look at as an opportunity. from learning from this. As you know, we have a proposal for a training center, the Opportunity Center. And part of that work was going to start actually this semester through Los Rios College, where we would do a certificate program for community health workers. So imagine how community health workers could have really impacted this by communicating with the community, in the community, about some of the early signs and preventive things that we could have done. And so I think that when we look at this as an opportunity to
Screen got frozen. We have a little technical difficulty here. Nathan, can you hear me?
I can hear you, sir. Yep.
Rachel, are you back?
I'm sorry, I missed my connection must have stopped. I didn't hear you.
That's
I'm
okay.
back. I'm sorry about that.
You were talking about the proposed La Familia Training Center and what that would mean to the young people of the community. Why don't you continue? Can you hear me? Let me turn it to Nathan just for a minute and we'll try to get you back, okay? Nathan, you with me?
Yep, I'm here, Mayor.
Okay, so I want to ask you a tough question. We talked about new initiatives like the Mercado, right? And the revitalization of Franklin Boulevard. Mm-hmm. And so here we face this dilemma where the city just received, as I said earlier, an $89 million federal stimulus check because we just got over the population threshold, 508,000 people. As I say, growth is good because if we had come under 500,000, we would not have gotten this check. So we have $89 million. Mm-hmm. As the city council and the community considers how to invest that money, should we be investing it more in trying to address the current crisis and the damage that real people are feeling in real time? Should we be subsidizing rent? Should we be paying back rent? Should we be providing emergency loans? Or should we be investing more directly in, quote, the economic future in catalytic projects like the Mercado? I'm not saying it's either or, of course. I'm not saying that. But I want to get your advice here around how we should be thinking about this one-time source of money that amounts to nearly $90 million.
Yeah, it's a broad, fair question. I appreciate you giving me the authority to comment on this.
You know what you are? You're a voter.
Thank you. That's a big question, and it's a full big question. So my comment to that, I'm actually going to divert a little bit from that, would be trying to figure out how do we invest that back into areas that need it most. Apart from Franklin Boulevard, there's many other corridors that need the money, right? We could be reactive. We're trying to be proactive. Honestly, from our perspective, all the help we can get would be great. I don't know how the best way to divvy this money up, but I do know that we do need help, whether it's through loans, whether it's through, I'd say grants for that matter, but anything that can help stifle the coronavirus and get us going to Sacramento 2.0 at this point.
Okay, thank you. Rachel, are you back?
I think I'm back. Sorry about that.
No, don't worry. We're all getting used to this new world and very patient with it too. We have to be.
Internet connections.
So I want you to talk just a minute. We're getting near the end here, but I was just asking Nathan maybe an unfair question about how he would recommend the city think about its $89 million federal stimulus check, whether or not that money should be put directly into the emergency to pay rent, for example, to help pay back rent, to help the businesses with their immediate expenses, or whether we should be thinking about some of those catalytic economic drivers like the Mercado and be investing in our economic future. They both relate to the coronavirus in very different ways. And so you were talking about the La Familia Training Center. And I want you to talk a little bit more about that and how that is so important in terms of changing the workforce development system in Sacramento. And then I want to ask you the same question. If you're in my shoes, do you think about this money more to plug the essential holes in terms of what people are dealing with and going through now? Or do we invest it in continuing to try to build a broader and more diverse community over the medium and long term?
Good. So yes, I think both. I think we need to do both. We do need to do some emergency services right now, and we need to be thinking about the future. When this is over, it's not going to go back to the way it was. We know that, we're hearing up to 20% of businesses might not be able to restart up again. And so where are those employees going to go for work, right? How are we going to continue to keep our economy going? And so that's where the Opportunity Center was moving in the direction of that, looking at the next economy, looking at the jobs of the future, and how we can train community members in communities such as Franklin, in communities all over Sacramento that have been disadvantaged and not been given opportunities in the past, to provide training for the jobs of the future. So healthcare industry, I talked about the community health workers. That's a huge part of what was the Opportunity Center would offer, and it would be a huge impact to addressing things like this. Just all of the jobs. So it needs to be a combination of both. We need to look at how we emergency funds to those businesses that can make it, and how we can support them, and then how do we think about the future so that if something like this happens again, we are not just hitting those communities that have been disadvantaged for years, that they're not feeling the brunt of this, that they are able to be resilient and come back from this. We know, as Nathan said, that Franklin is a very resilient community. During the recession, most of those businesses made it. So we need to be a little bit different in our approach in terms of how we are going to address this and how we're going to get back on our feet when this is over.
What do you want from your city?
So I say both.
What do you want from your city?
I want to be heard. I want our city to hear us. I want them to see us as a community. We are nearly 30% of the population. I want us to be heard. We probably don't speak out as much as we should, but we want to be acknowledged. We want to be acknowledged for the contributions that we've made to this city, how we are an integral part of fabric of this city, and we want to continue to contribute. We think that there are some amazing leaders in Sacramento, and we want to support you in helping us get through this, but we want to be acknowledged and supported, and that's what we would ask from our city leaders. Thank you for asking.
More than fair and right. Nathan, what do you want from your city?
What Rachel said, some love, some representation, some resources, to be quite frank. I look at, and I'm going to pick on you a little bit, but we see how the funds got distributed from the $1 million, and we got 39,000 of the $1 million that got distributed. And for us, it's a little disappointing, and it doesn't make us feel like we're heard, right? And we're welcomed as part of the city. And so, on that note, we do appreciate, commend the city for trying, but there's a lot more that we have to do as we move forward. And specifically coming out of Corona, we're an ecosystem of businesses, neighborhoods, city, public-private partnership, and we're here to help with that. And we want to see Sacramento thrive together, and we want to be part of that.
Thank you. Go ahead, Rachel. Go. I think your camera got a little frozen again. Go ahead. Well, I think we're having those technical difficulties again. I want to thank you both for taking a few minutes on a Friday night and giving voice to what we all know and love about our city, is that we are not just one neighborhood, that we are a beautiful collection of people from all kinds of backgrounds with great tradition and history, and that as we get through this, that we have to pay special attention to the communities and neighborhoods that too often are fragile and have too often been left behind and left out. That's been my commitment since I got elected to this office. And you know, you're always thrown for a loop here with one thing or another. And certainly we've been thrown for a huge loop here with this coronavirus. But instead of diverting us from that mission to invest in our communities and to mean what we say when we talk about inclusion, instead of diverting us, it only should reinforce our commitment to everybody. And you both have given real voice to that, not just tonight, but throughout your long service and your long careers. And I thank you very, very much for joining me tonight. This won't be our last conversation, but I'm sure it will be the first of many as we figure out how to help the people that you represent and the people I represent. Thank you all very much. Have a great weekend, everybody. Thank you.